This is Charlie Parsons for the Stomping Ground, powered by Wow Hydrate and available on DAZN. Off the back of Javonta Tank Davis last weekend, David Benavidez with a great move up to light heavyweight. Billam Smith retaining his title on away territory against Richard Riakporhe. Gareth A Davies on Zoom. How are you, sir?
I'm good. We just had a 10-minute row before we came on air, and
Gav
I love
just had
it.
a bit of a row.
I didn't have a row at all. I'm just trying to give you good advice, which won't be on air, but you're developing brilliantly as a young broadcaster. And sometimes I want to give you advice from my advanced years of yours, and you're hard to get into, hard to get through to. But I'm only giving it to you because I care about how you present yourself and your future. That's it.
Well, man like Gareth, we appreciate that. Let's go straight into it. You mentioned Tank straight away to me when we got on here. He's so good. Even Frank Martin looked good at times early on in the fight, methodical. We know he was a great amateur, probably will still go on to be a great pro. He did look a little bit tight at the weight going into the fight. But yeah, Tank special, right?
Special before the fight and during the fight. I thought mentally and emotionally, he absolutely owned Frank Martin going through the fight week. And that's where he's really changed as a man and a fighter. He's imposing himself on opponents now in a very virile, very effervescently aggressive way. And they don't know how to handle him. And I cannot wait for him to have the Devin Haney, Shaka Stevenson, who else is there? The rematch with Ryan Garcia. They are going to be fireworks. If they explode and we see all those fights, then he'll become the face of boxing in America, as he calls himself. He hasn't crossed over into the mainstream yet. You go and ask football fans who he is at the Euros at the moment. 1 in 10 might know.
I find Tank a bit of a conundrum because like there's certain people around me in my friendship groups or whatever that I'll meet that aren't necessarily into boxing and they'll like him maybe from the social media reels as such. But then I suppose you are right. There's not been any pay-per-view figures reported, but people have always sort of wanted that big fight. I know Bob Arum's teeing up the Lomachenko fight at the minute, but can you sort of understand where people a little bit frustrated by opposition with him at times, and maybe that's what it needs to sort of break that next boundary.
Well, he had that huge fight with Ryan Garcia where
Yeah.
I understand he may have earned $40 million potentially. Um, and he has become a big star in his own mind. And I think that's very important with him because I remember when you were in, would have been probably seventh year or
Yeah.
eighth year at school, he was over here fighting one of the Walsh brothers and he barely spoke. Mayweather spoke for him. Um, and Floyd Mayweather Jr., that is, and when he was under his shadow, if you like. But he's come out. He's much more. You know, he comes with his entourage now and his giant truck and his look, and you know, and he's grown from an incredibly talented young man into he's found his maturity, and we're seeing that now, and he's just starting the peak of his years right now. So I think he is a big star, but he hasn't crossed over fully into the mainstream yet. He hasn't had that moment yet.
Did you see a different Tank in the build-up this week? I know that he'd had a
Oh
lot of
yeah,
time out the ring, but I thought when I saw him and the way he was handling himself at press conferences, it looked a little different.
yeah. He is what he's doing is he's harnessed his power energy over his opponents, and he's literally close to, like Mike Tyson did, like other very aggressive fighters have done. They're telling their opponent they're a millisecond away from a brawl, even though they're not. So they're getting very. His heart rate is staying very low, and he knows what he's doing. It's very controlled. Like when he suddenly dug at Frank Martin's belly and made him jump, when he'd been yapping at him for about 5 minutes. And you could see that Frank Martin was very uncomfortable with it. There was no comeback. He didn't have a comeback for it. He wanted out of there. He wanted to get back, relax, and reset and get ready for Saturday night. And Tank got into him. And all of those things are power plays. that will make him a bigger star, that will send out his fog of brilliance over his opponents. But like I say, Shaka won't stand for it. Devon ain't going to stand for it. Ryan Garcia ain't going to stand for it again. And I want to see him all three of those fights in the next 2 years.
Would I be sort of right in saying that they may not be there immediately? I mean, like I said, we'll talk about the Lomachenko fight, but obviously Devin now up at 140. We believe Ryan may even go higher, whether it be a catchweight or competing at welterweight. Shakur, the 135 the 135 fight that would make sense, but we know that Tank's not a huge 135-pounder.
I think if I was Bob Arum, I might do it that way around, but he's got Lomachenko and Shaka Stevenson. Shaka Stevenson needs a really big fight as well to
Only got
elevate.
one left with Shakur, doesn't he?
Yeah, but I mean, I can't. I mean, if he leaves him, fine. If he, I can't. But I can't see him leaving him. It's been a great career so far. They've handled him incredibly well. It depends whether does Tank fight Loma first or does Shakur fight Loma first. Shakur and Loma are in the same stable. It's been talked about. Do you put Shakur in with Loma after he's fought Tank? I don't think he beats Tank. Might even get stopped. He's skillful to go through the last one, but sorry?
Is that Shakur?
No, Tank and Loma. You know, obviously both fights are there. There's obviously Teofimo Lopez there as well, by the way, in that mix. Keyshawn Davis, oh God, Regis Prograis. You know, there's actually I'm going up to 140 there rather than staying at 135. So there's a whole band of them at 135 and 140 now that you can literally get.
Yeah,
I might have said this to you before. Between 1980 and 89, the four kings, Leonard, Hearns, Hagler, and Duran, fought 9 times. Yeah, the four of them. If you take all this group we're talking about, they could fight 9 times, 12 times between all of them. That you might say we might get a Ryan Garcia, Devin Haney trilogy, for goodness sake. I mean, I'd like to see those two fight again. I really would like to see them fight again. It's a period that's ripe for these giant fights, and America needs it, in my view, if boxing is going to be as big as it can be over there.
Well, I suppose on that topic, David Benavidez, with a comfortable first fight up at 175 pounds. I interviewed him in the build-up to the fight, and he told me that he believes he can still go down to 168 pounds afterwards. We know that it's always a task making that super middleweight with the big frame that he's got. We know he's been down there for years. He's always been one of the bigger, if not the bigger fighter in the division. It seems like from what we're hearing, though, I just feel like as fans, and maybe you'll say the same here, that I just feel like we're never going to see Canelo Benavidez and vice versa.
No, we need to see it. It'd be an absolute outrage if it doesn't happen, in my view. We need Canelo to pick up the baton at some point and say, no, I'll fight Benavidez. It's one of the sport's super fights. It needs to happen. They've got to let him be the A side in the whole thing. It's a fantastic stylistic fight. I think ego and timing is the thing here. I think he's thrown out that figure of 200 million to make the fight or something, hasn't he? $200 million. I think there was I don't know if I dreamt that, or there was a throwaway line from Canelo where he said, I need $200 million for that fight. The trouble is the optics on it suggests that Canelo doesn't want the fight, doesn't fancy it. But the warrior inside him should want it. It's as simple as that.
The feeling from me, and from doing an interview in the past with His Excellency Turki Al-Sheikh, he's always, when spoke about Benavidez, mentioned Bivol and Beterbiev. And for Canelo, it seems like the plan has always been Crawford as such. Would that be right? And
yeah, I agree. I agree. But once the Crawford fight's done, and Canelo could be beaten by Crawford, by the way, it's not too big an ask. It's an enormous. It's a difficult fight for Crawford,
Yeah.
but he's so clever, he's so technical, he's so efficient. He's got so many gears. You'd have to find a new gear for Canelo, and he'd be hit more and hit harder than he's probably ever been hit. But it's an amazing fight. It's so amazing. And if Canelo wins that, then maybe it's time for Benavidez. But you're not wrong in thinking that's the way that people are looking at the promotion at the moment.
Um, on Benavidez at 175, how good is he?
At 175, I don't think he beats Bivol, but the fight with Beterbiev is very, very exciting.
Yeah,
But then I've just seen Bivol put on a great performance at the 5v5 card where he just looks so good, so
brilliant.
sleek, so
Yeah.
slick. Um, Obviously against an opponent who's a level below him, you'd say on paper, maybe even 2 levels below him. I think Bivol's a really hard fight for Benavidez. I think Beterbiev is a better fight for him stylistically, as I say, in the matchup. But listen, he's a big guy. He can cut it at 175, but it's at 168, a 12-stone super middleweight, where I think he's at the peak of his powers.
Tell you what, the David Morrell fight against Benavidez at light heavy would be good.
Yeah, again, stylistically works. Thing is about Benavidez, he's a crowd pleaser. Thing
Mm.
is about Benavidez is that he wants to go in there and fight. Thing is about Benavidez is that he'll fight anybody. And the other thing about Benavidez is he'll be very, very disappointed if he ends his career without Saul Canelo Alvarez on the other side. Win or lose that fight.
Gareth, Chris Billam Smith. Now I'm not going to say upset as such, but a lot of the industry sort of insiders were picking Reactball going into the fight. Stuck to the game plan. Saw interviews from McGuigan afterwards. I've seen Chris Billam Smith himself done an interview with Oscar where he said, actually no, I think this is the most sort of switched on I've been throughout a fight in terms of my corner, my game plan, and everything. Did that show on Saturday?
Yeah, and I picked against him like many others, but I had a feeling I picked Riakpor to win late by stoppage, but I also had a nagging feeling that if it went the distance, it would be Chris Billam Smith's fight because of his work rate. He's learnt a lot more in the 5 years that they've been since they fought in 2019, and he lost by split decision 10 fights. And he's learnt a lot more about himself and what he can do, his work rate, his engine, his chin, his desire. And he does everything okay, but you put it all together and he's got a lot there. He's a massive, and I mean it respectfully, overachiever. You can put him in the same vein as Anthony Crolla, Tony Bellew. I'm trying to think of others that who, when you look back on their career, you didn't realize what they were going to achieve when they started off. So, I mean that respectfully. I picked against him twice now in big fights: the Coley fight, the Lawrence Coley fight, and the Richard Riakpor fight. I was down in Bournemouth early last week doing Dodge Woodall's I keep always forgetting the word, Eventful Lives podcast. And I was down in Bournemouth. It was raining everywhere else in the UK on the Monday and Tuesday. And it was like 22 degrees in like Spain down there. I paddle boarded and cycled, and I thought, they're feeding him to the wolves at Selhurst Park. But you mentioned Shane McGuigan. They've all, and he deserves great credit as well. Those two have been together 7 years, I think, something like that.
It's been a
Great
long.
credit for simplicity of game plan, absolute faith in his fighters, truthfulness about things, strategy implemented. They listen to him. The level of trust he has with his fighters is brilliant. And that's what Chris trusted his game plan. And he went in there, and Riakpor could not knock down the wall. He tried early on, but he could not do it.
Well, obviously, the two tempting fights that are out there are Zurdo Ramirez, who obviously had that win against Gulamarin, and then Jai Opetaia, who is everyone's number one in the division. He said it's not a matter of overlooking Opetaia and wanting to pass Opetaia for the time being, but they tried to make that fight. Now he wants to do something for himself, which would be the Zurdo fight over in Vegas or LA or stateside somewhere. You can understand that, can't you?
Yeah, you can. And I remember Zurdo Ramirez. Gilberto Ramirez when he was a super middleweight years ago, and knew him then. He's a great character, and he's someone that really comes in and loves to fight. Proud kind of Latin American fighter. I think he's Mexican heritage. I'm pretty sure he is.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's a really good fight for Billam Smith because it's a guy coming up, but he's got to be careful. Zurdo is very sneaky with his shots, and he has got power, and he lets it go. It's a great fight for Billam Smith. Yes, go to Vegas. Why don't they just build a stadium on the beach in Bournemouth and have it open air, late in the summer? I love the utility. Is it the Vitality?
Vitality, yeah.
Yeah, I loved that fight at the Vitality. I'll never forget that night. Were you there that night?
I wasn't at the stadium. No, I've only ever done the arena.
Yeah, it was at the stadium. It was fantastic. Balmy night. Hard to get to, hard to get away from. Great crowd down there. But if he wants to do Vegas, great. If he doesn't want to do Jai Opetaia at the moment, great. Opetaia is the leading fighter in the division, in my view. Had a hard last 3-4 rounds against Maris Bradis. But let's not forget what Bradis has done and how tough he is. Jai is probably not going to be around at cruiserweight for more than another 2 fights. And will probably go up and fight Lawrence Okoli at Bridger, and then move up to heavyweight. David Hay believes he's good enough at heavyweight. They're very similar sizes, the 2 men. And I think Jai's filling out more. So, yeah, I mean, there's loads of options. It was a brilliant victory, and you have to give him full praise and a great success for Shane McGuigan as well, in my view.
Gareth, Ben Whittaker is tremendously active, keeps putting on a show, keeps building the fan base, keeps impressing, but we want to see the levels start to step up now. Would that be fair? I know he's got time on his hands. I know he doesn't want to feel like he's rushed, but I don't know. I saw someone online make a comparison to the other Olympians of the era of that year, and I don't think you can always do that as such, but would just be nice to see the sort of gradual steps, no?
Yeah. To finish off today, the I mentioned Roy Jones Jr. earlier to you. I've been with Roy Jones Jr. this week, and he's training the youngest pro in the UK, Tony Lightning, who's 17. And Roy Jones Jr. was a showboater, but he finished through the keyhole with finality at the end of that showboating. He found the punches that really counted. And that's what we need from Ben Whittaker, not showboating for showboating's sake. And it is brilliant to watch, don't get me wrong, and there's a brilliance about it. But at the end of that sequence, let's see something powerful. Let's see him opening someone up for a shot to the liver, or a shot to the rib cage, or an uppercut that finishes someone or knocks them out on their feet, as we used to see from Roy Jones Jr., as we used to see from Nazim Hamid. Now, I might seem overcritical here, but let's see the showboating being used to create that smokescreen that opens the door for him to really hurt someone. And that's the only thing I think is missing from his armory.
Do you think that might become more apparent as the levels step up, that he won't maybe do it as much because he can't do it as much because he's got
we
more?
Might do it more,
yeah.
But we need to see him step in with power, because he's going to make everybody's life difficult in there because of his unorthodox style. There's no question about that. But it's how it's the exclamation mark on the end of the sequence. It's the full stop on the end of the sequence that I want to see. Even if it's a massive jab at the end of it that jolts his opponent back, or double, triple, quadruple, quintuple, sextuple, septuple, octuple, 8 jabs from him or something that suddenly rocks the opponent back and back and back like a chain sequence, and he knocks them out with 8 jabs in a row. Because I know you're laughing, but maybe he's capable of that,
That's why we like speaking to you, Gareth. We get the energy, though. We get the 8 jabs in a row. Quickly, I know I haven't got time.
And finally,
I'll squeeze in 2 more.
Go on.
Eddie has said that Anthony Joshua versus Daniel Dubois is the clear front runner now. I really like it. I think everyone wrote him off against Filip Hrgović in Saudi Arabia. I remember that feeling on the floor all
I,
week.
I, I voted for Hrgović as well. Yeah.
I actually picked Daniel in that fight. Um, but if remarkable what he's come on from that Joe Joyce fight. We can talk about the Usyk fight. People said, and I remember Frank Warren after the fight, people said about Dubois that he had that quitter in him. I think he showed in the Hrgović fight that he didn't as such.
About two people said that in the
Domestic fight. It sells out Wembley. Excited?
Yeah, it'll be a huge card as well. I think just over a week's time we'll have a press conference, won't we, in London to confirm that if it is to be confirmed. I'm not confirming it now. As you say, Eddie said it's the front runner. Kind of open secret that it looks like that was the option, even though when we were at 5v5, Deontay Wilder, just before he fought Zhili Zhang, was clearly in the mix as well. Love the fact that Martin Bakole is now fighting Jared Anderson, by the
Great
way.
fight.
Like it is because it's a great test for both of them. It's a step up for a Bakole, and puts him in the big mix, and it's a big test for Jared Anderson. I think he may well come through it actually, because it might get the best out of him. But wouldn't surprise me if Bakole won that either. It's a great fight. There'll be a big undercard if Dubois and Joshua happens. Yes, he stepped up in that contest. We've spoken about it before, by the way. He learned from the Usyk defeat, and he learned from the Joyce defeat, and he learned from the Jarrell Miller fight, and he put all those things together in that Hrgović fight. He's not going to be able to be hit by those straight right hands by Anthony Joshua over and over again if Joshua can find them. He's got a massive opportunity against Anthony Joshua, because we know that Anthony Joshua is back to form, back to mentally right, two great victories under his belt, where he's carried promotions cleverly and brilliantly. There are still question marks always about how he's going to respond when it's put on him. And that's what Dubois has to do, is to put it on Joshua and make it a fight, make it a proper fight. And then if he does, he's got a chance.
Finally, from me, when I spoke to Frank Smith last week, he said, "Look, we invite Ben Shalom to come down for Tyler Denny versus Felix Cash. I believe he is taking them up on that offer. Great fight we've got in Birmingham, but I suppose also will be good to see if they can sort of, it's not always going to be majorly amicable and stuff like that, but good to see that maybe the intent's there from either side."
Yeah, of course it is. I mean, you do want them all working together. Look what we've had with Frank Warren and Eddie Hearn in the last 3 months. Look what we got from that event. You were out there. It was extraordinary. It was a great week. It was very long, and obviously we've been on tour, you and I, in the Middle East for 3 weeks, and but those are the moments you never forget, both in your career and the guys involved in it never forget. And it was and I like the fact Ben's got a stable that could cross over in some cross promotions with Matchroom and Queensbury. So I want to see them working together. I want to see them, like Jaya Pattaya and Chris Billam Smith. It's still a very, very good fight. That very, very good fight, especially after what Billam Smith just achieved. So I want them in those talks. I
Mm.
want them doing those talks. So I think it's great. And if he is there on Saturday night, brilliant, at the Resorts World in Birmingham. Good fight. Glad to see Felix Cash back after a long absence. Great to see the fact that he's going to be. And Tyler Denny, well, he shocked us all recently, didn't he? So it's a really good fight. And they'll do that as well, the pair of them. So I'm really looking forward to it.
An exciting build up, Gareth. I will let you get on. The weather's picked up a little. Many a time when we do these Zooms, it's grey and miserable no matter what time of the year it is. Well, I have certainly got the sun coming through here at least. What's your plans for today?
I'm going to have a little paddle board and a little cycle this afternoon, amongst a ton of writing, because I'm finishing off a book I'm doing at the
Very
moment.
exciting. Will we see you at all this week?
You will probably see me this week.
Very exciting. Gareth A Davies, little thumbnail. My man.